And I think both of you also see this as an economic opportunity that you don't want to miss. You've talked about how, in many ways, African Americans missed out on the IT revolution, right? So I think a part of what you're trying to do is to make sure that we're a part of this new economy, or we're part of these new opportunities that Tom Friedman is talking about when he speaks to us powerfully about he who writes the rules. You want to say something about that?
Yes, I mean, we did completely, like, you know, when the IT boom went bust, you know, people in poor communities, we didn't notice. Gotta tell you, and that was most people around the world. But this time around, you know, this is the kind of thing where we are actually needed in order to make a real dent in what's going to happen. And the other thing that I think is so important here, you know, is the fact that I don't, and this may seem really awful, but the bottom line is, like, I think as we, you know, the fact is that we are going to see more green prisons built in this country before we see many green schools built. We are setting up, I mean, we know that poverty in and of itself is something that breeds more American forms of terrorism than anything else. If you have nothing to look forward to, nothing to gain, and much of that comes with the fact, understanding the knowledge that your economics, I mean, there was a reason why Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was talking about economic justice at the end of his life just as much as he was about racial justice, because he knew good and daggone well was that if you give a black man his freedom and he does not have a job in order to support his family, to create the kind of stability in their communities, then he doesn't have that much. And so they're all tied together, and people that are really desperate, in desperate situations, I don't care if it's the Middle East or I don't care if it's here, the bottom line is what you will get is a country that it will be a tinderbox. And on so many levels, we're watching this country get hotter in more ways than one. And that's why it's so important to know that the same people that have been thrown away for such a long time, you know, in our society, can actually become the heroes of the future if we give them an opportunity to do so.
You've used the expression the dignity of work, and you think about these green heroes in your community. Talk about the dignity of work.
Sure. Well, part of the opportunity that we have is to think about the dignity of labor. We've almost gotten to the point where if you try to introduce the idea that we can train a whole new generation of what we call green-collar workers, and we used to have blue-collar pathways out of poverty. We now expect our young people to climb a 6-story ladder out of poverty, but the ladder only has 4 rungs on it. So it's not possible. What we're saying is, with a greening of the country, we can start to put some of those basic stair steps back in there. Let our young people have the dignity of being not seen as a social villain, but the ecological hero, the ecological shero. That's really important. We can't drill and burn our way out of our economic and energy crisis. This is really critical that we understand that. We can't drill and burn our way out. If we do, we'll bake the planet. But we can invent and invest our way out. And if we choose to, as Tom Friedman says, invent and invest our way out, and add one more I, invent, invest, and include. Invent, invest, and include. We can solve our social problems and our environmental problems. I think it's so important to say that.
What inhibits the inclusion?
Let me just finish my thought. The reason I think it's important to say that is because it's been 40 years since Bobby Kennedy was shot, 40 years ago this summer. Dr. King was shot 40 years ago this year. The pain and the heartbreak is still in the country. I was born that year. Dr. King was 39 when he got shot. I'm 39 right now. He never got to be 40. We act like he was 70. He never saw his 40th birthday. If Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy were here today, they would say about this green economy, they would be proud that we are beginning to make these changes. But they would ask a question. And the question they would ask, they would say, where is the bull Connor that's preventing us from creating this green economy in a more inclusive way? Where are the attack dogs? Where are the fire hoses? They would talk to the white leaders, the black leaders, the Latino leaders, the Asian leaders, the green leaders, and they would say, you have an opportunity now to reinvent the economy, to reboot it, to retrofit it. You get to break up with oil. That's a tremendous opportunity. Well, go ahead and break up with classism and racism and sexism too. Go ahead and do it the right way. Because if you do it the right way, you will unleash the energy and the imagination and the creativity of the whole people. And that is the only thing. You mentioned, Tom Friedman mentioned, and then I'll be quiet, but you mentioned Noah. And I think that's a powerful metaphor. I think about the Titanic as another metaphor.
Well, you say you go from Amistad to Titanic.
Well, sure. When I was doing politics, back when Corey knew me, when I was young and radical, I thought of the politics I was doing as the Amistad politics. People may not know that Amistad was a slave ship, and there was a slave rebellion, and the leader Sinkyu got the ship turned back toward freedom. And I thought that was me. I'm gonna free my people, and we're gonna head toward freedom. And I spent 20 years of my life leading the Amistad rebellion. We black people are gonna rise up, and we're gonna be free. And then I looked outside of the boat, and the boat wasn't called the Amistad, it was called the Titanic. And then my leadership challenge changed quite a bit. Right. I gotta save my people, but I also gotta help save everybody else and help save the ship. And now it's more urgent that we save the people on the bottom of the boat. Maybe if they had let the people at the bottom of the Titanic be involved with the solution, they'd have come up with a better solution. So now the challenge is to free the people, to unleash their creativity, to help save the whole boat. And I think that's the politics. You say, how we get our groove back? That's the politics. It's the politics of bringing everybody's genius into play to solve everybody's shared problem.